Hi there, this is my channel, Yaru Walks. In the year 2024, I will embark on an epic walking journey across the United States. I plan to hike 8,000 miles and to cross the US 3 times, via the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, and Continental Divide Trail. In the hiking world, this is known as a calendar year Triple Crown and has been completed by only a handful of hikers in history. The calendar year Triple Crown has traditionally been completed by jumping within or between the trails throughout the year, primarily to avoid snow, but also to avoid other seasonal hazards such as floods, extreme desert heat, and wildfires. For my attempt, I'm trying to hike each trail on a continuous, unbroken, end-to-end footpath, and to accomplish this, I must hike across all 4 seasons. I will be posting weekly updates along the way, so you can join me for the journey. Wish me luck.
That explains a lot. It's 13 degrees Fahrenheit out this morning. The forecast showed 30 degrees Fahrenheit as my low for the next week, so I switched to a warmer climate kit, and that was a mistake. So last night I did not sleep. All right, here's a lesson in how adaptable the human body is. If I had to guess right now, considering that it was 13 degrees Fahrenheit right around 2.5 hours ago, it's probably around 30 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit right now. And I'm walking barehanded. My hands don't feel cold at all. They're cold to the touch. If I shook someone's hand, they would say, "Oh my God, your hands are cold." But they quite literally feel fine to me right now. I really think I've spent so much time outside and in a cold environment now. The cold environment really starting around the Wind River Range in Wyoming, that I have a different perception of cold, and I think that if I went back to living in a house within about 3 months, I would readjust to the old threshold, though I think that my memory from this experience will permanently lower my threshold of tolerance for cold. And by lowering my tolerance, what I'm trying to say is I will forever be more adaptable to cold environments. I think anytime you step beyond your comfort zone thereafter expands a little bit, because you've at least experienced it and have a frame of reference for it. Especially when you go way out beyond the comfort zone, you might actually eventually find a point where you reach your limit, or you're even beyond your limit of what feels completely dangerous or unpleasant. But in that journey going beyond the comfort zone, what you nearly always discover is the actual limit of the comfort zone is much further out than you thought it was. So for example, before this year, I would think that 30 degrees Fahrenheit is very cold for living outside. But I saw a forecast this week that the nightly lows would be right around 30 degrees Fahrenheit for the next week. And when I saw that, I said, wow, I can switch from my inflatable pad to my Nemo air pad. Then it turned out last night the forecast was totally wrong, and it got down to something like 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit last night. And as a result, I'm lying on a pad that is on frozen ground that by about midnight felt almost like lying on an ice cube. So the bottom half of my body was just losing heat all night. I would say after about 1 a.m. I was awake and lying down and resting, but I wasn't sleeping. The last night on the pain scale was pretty brutal. However, it was not as brutal as when I was in Oregon and my tarp started leaking when it was right around 32 degrees Fahrenheit out, and it leaked on me all night from 11 p.m. until sunrise around like 7 a.m. That was the coldest I've ever been this year. Even colder than when I slept in Maine, and I think it was around -10, maybe -15 Fahrenheit on Mount Katahdin in the Birches Lean-To in January. And so that was an accidental stepping beyond my comfort zone that night in Oregon. But it puts last night into a different perspective where it's uncomfortable, but it's not almost unbearable in the way that it was sleeping in the rain all night in like 33 degrees Fahrenheit in Oregon. And so obviously last night in Oregon were unpleasant experiences. Those are where you're really stepping far out beyond the comfort zone. But those experiences put into perspective what it feels like to have mildly cold hands walking in sunlight in 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which literally is not bad at all. It's just super interesting to me how that works. I went to the Dollar General and I bought this memory foam shower mat, which I'm going to use to double up on my sleeping pad so that I don't freeze tonight like I did last night. This thing actually weighs almost nothing, so I'm excited to see how it performs tonight. This is where I slept last night. It may be hard to tell where I am. This might show you better. Under an overpass. So way out there is where I came from this morning. And now I've turned off that main highway and am moving south through the western edge of Albuquerque, New Mexico. So far, my review of Albuquerque is that it's much prettier than I thought and much bigger than I thought. And the people here are very nice. I think Albuquerque would be a good city to live in. So on my something like 160-mile alternate, the goal was to hike through 5 of those reservations along the highway, which I did over the last 2.5 days. And now I've hit Albuquerque. I'll hike south through Albuquerque, and then I will go back the direction I came from toward Grants. And then I have 2 routes I could hike. I found 2 now. One could be along the highway, and the other could be through a reservation, a Native American reservation. Or it could be on the highway. So if I can line it up to where I could camp before the reservation, I could then hike through it without camping in it. I do want to obey their rules. And that could be a stunning hike if I can make that work. I'm not sure logistically if I can make that work or not. And if I can't, then I'm going to hike the highway. Alright, I'm departing the Love's gas station. And as I left there, I was reflecting on how Love's is like one of those places that you have a sense of like American greatness there. And I'm going to contrast it with something like a McDonald's. Nowadays, you come into a McDonald's, and you guys may not be aware of this, some people may not be aware of this, but as a hiker, I go into and out of a lot of McDonald's, and a new trend that's happening is that they're removing the soda fountains from the inside, like where you can fill your own drink up. You have to go to the attendant to ask for a refill. And they've also, on the inside, more or less phased out ordering from the counter. You have to go to a kiosk and punch it in. And then with the kiosk, instead of just like immediately opening and working, it pops up with 2 or 3 advertisements that take about 4 seconds to fade away before you can actually order your food. So now, when you come into a place like Love's, the gas station, look at this, it's a tank. Everything about it is optimized to make the experience enjoyable. They have showers, they have a restaurant attached, they have good coffee, everything is reasonably priced. There are all these subtle details where it's like someone thought, how can I make this nicer for the customer? Those are both family-owned, privately held businesses. Whereas a McDonald's or any other corporation is owned by a million different shareholders, and they want to squeeze every bit of human decency out of you that they can get away with if it results in 2 more goddamn pennies in their pocket. Let's go this way. You keep those 2 pennies in your pocket. It's not worth it to us. We'd rather humanize you. Have a place where the employees are happy to work there. People who come in feel a good vibe. They notice little things they never would have considered for how to run a gas station. That's just wonderful. You know, when a family runs a company, they're willing to give up those 2 pennies to make the world this happy, nice place. But all these giant corporations literally want to squeeze those 2 pennies out of you. And if that means ordering from a kiosk is your only option, and when you use the kiosk, 4 slow-moving advertisements pop up, it's not enough to let you just order for yourself. You got to look at our advertisements. I know it's subtle, and probably a lot of people would tune that out, but it infuriates me when I come to this kiosk at a McDonald's, and it makes me watch 4 advertisements for about 3.5 seconds. How hard would it be to not do that? All right, so the other update for the morning, apart from how awesome Love's is that Love's marked a fork in the road. There are 2 ways you can go from there. One is straight south, the other is straight west. The south route would take me to the Mexican border in about, I think it was about 300 miles. I think it's 289 to be exact. This other route is unclear, though over the last 3 or 4 days, I think I have mapped out a route that I'm pretty confident will not have a fence across it. And will not go through a Native American reservation. Those are the 2 things that concern me. Roads that are public but might have a fence across them, and then the Native American reservations, because there some people who are not representative of the entire community there are very hostile towards outsiders, and could impinge my route, like a fence could impinge my route. And I have approximately no wiggle room left to make any errors whatsoever. So if I go the CDT route, I have to average 35 to 40 miles per day, including stoppage time for things like groceries or anything. If I go the interstate route south on I-25, I'd have to average 22 miles per day. All year long, though it may not be apparent to someone watching the CDT section, there has been no section I have not walked up to examine first, to see if it's what I think is basically going to kill me or has a chance of killing me, or if it's actually hikeable. If I went the interstate route south, I'm sure 22 miles a day sounds like a lot to most people, but that feels almost knowably accomplishable. if I go this other way, I'm gonna have to push myself harder than I push myself all year speed-wise. And I believe it's a hikeable route. So I could get up here and find snow. I could also get up here and hike alternates and hit a gate. I could also get up here and, because it's the desert, find stretches where there actually isn't water, because nobody's hiked this trail in about the last 1.5 months, according to the comments in my app. So there's a genuine amount of uncertainty up here. And so the fork in the road is, which way do you go? The safe way south on the interstate the whole way, not being in nature? Or do you want to finish the way you've hiked all year, which is you go and look at all of the scary sections in the eyes and make your own call, you know, before turning away from it or going for it. And even if I don't make it to the border in time, which I feel like the odds are right around 50-50 that I'll make it. And if I miss it, I'll miss it by 1 or 2 days, assuming I don't get injured. But the journey is like the reward. I'm pretty clear, I think. If I took the easy interstate route south, not finishing in nature for the entire last week and a half, and on a route that I pretty much know I can succeed on, versus taking the route that's going to challenge me in the last 2 weeks, and where I get to be back in nature in my favorite environment, the desert, I would rather choose the route that would force me to hike 35 to 40 miles per day all the way to the end of the border if I finish on time. And that's considering that the fastest I've ever hiked is 28 miles per day across the PCT desert, where I average that for right around 1,000 miles. So I've got to up that by 7 to 13 miles per day, which is pretty wild. Because I think it'll be badass to finish the year having consistently all year long walked up to every anxiety-inducing situation and looked at it with my own eyes first before I walked away from it. And in many, many cases, hiked sections that almost no other hiker would hike. Because all year long, I've been kind of saying, there's the border of your comfort zone, and then outside that border, somewhere unknown, is the actual radius of your limitations. And it's walking in that gap space between your comfort zone and your actual limitations that you grow most as a person and have the greatest adventure. Nearly everybody in the world has arranged their life subconsciously, I think, around a desire for comfort, an elimination of uncertainty. And I'm not always the opposite, but in my free time, I seek the opposite. I in all aspects of life, when I have free time, like vacation time, I go after the gap space between my comfort zone and my limits. Just showing you kind of, this is another reservation, how serious they are about keeping outsiders off the reservation. So this is actually kind of fun. I've talked to 2 different police officers tonight. People have been calling the cops on me on the interstate. And then I got off the interstate because people were calling the police about me. I figured I'll hopefully have less calls to the police. I figured they would appreciate that. So I hopped off into this road, which is the old Route 66 road right here. But then one car drove by and they called the police on me. So another police officer rolled up and I stood up to talk to him again real quick, and I find out I'm actually on reservation land. Like, this is the reservation. And it's like, I feel like I have a phobia of reservations after getting shot at. and seeing all those signs saying like no camping. And so as soon as he told me that, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna camp here. He's like, oh yeah, don't worry. He's like, you can camp out at the reservation police headquarters if you want to. And I was like, well, you know, I'm kind of needing to push more mileage. Do you know if there's anywhere I could sleep around like the gas station that's like another 5 miles ahead? And he said, yep, there's an area right in the back. You're welcome to camp there. I'll let the other officers know that you're approved to camp on the reservation and, you know, in the back of the gas station. So I said, thank you very much. So tonight I will actually be sleeping, on the Pueblo Laguna reservation land behind a gas station. So way up there, that truck is the police officer who stopped to check in with me last night, the first one on the interstate. And he's off duty right now. And he's like, hey, Jake. So I come running over and he's just like, how's it going? How did last night go? He was just curious to hear like how it all went and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I met another officer. He was super cool. He's like, yeah, that guy's great. And then he was just checking to see how the hike was going. He was excited to hear, you know, it's like so fun just meeting locals, friendly faces, people checking in with you, like, you know, even days later. Like honestly, before I was kind of like, I don't know, like just I didn't understand the reservation land, and I feel like I'm starting to understand it a lot better. They're not really closed to outsiders. They just want to know who you are, what you're doing, and like if you're going on a public road, you're good to just go. But if you're going out in the backcountry, you have to get a permit. And even out here, the permit is free. So, you know, like I think they're welcome to outsiders. They just don't want people coming in and screwing up the land and robbing people, basically. So anyway, yeah, so he gave me his phone number, personal phone number. Like, yeah, if you come back through, like, you know, here's where my house is, like, you know, feel free to stop by. So it's cool hiking on foot, not just in the mountains, but through towns, because you make these connections with people kind of all over the country. So I have all these ideas brewing in my head for maybe another hike someday. So anyway, what an awesome little thing to happen right there. That has to be one of the oldest looking buildings I've ever seen in the US, because I hiked the AT where I saw buildings that were 200 and 300 years old. That looks every bit as old. Awesome experience. I just met Chris back there and he gave me some water and a slice of pizza. You see that green light off in the distance? That is a Subway sandwich store. And I've never been more excited to see a Subway sandwich store. Not because I particularly like Subway, but because that shop up there marks the end of a 160-mile interstate alternate to Albuquerque, all the way to Albuquerque, and then back to Grants. And that's where the CDT picks back up for me. And so when I hit that Subway shop, instead of hiking east and west, which are not forward miles, I'm going to be hiking south in the direction of Mexico, which is going to feel good. In my opinion, like, people keep saying you're in the home stretch, you're in the home stretch. I'm not in the home stretch until I hit that Subway and I turn left, and now I'm oriented south. And then it's like 300 and like, I don't know, 350 miles to go until I hit the Mexican border. Fourth and last time I'm crossing I-40 in my whole hiking career. Third time crossing it this year. There we go. Entering the El Malpais National Monument. It's so dark right now that I can't see anything, so I hope that it's still visible tomorrow morning. I feel like there's something really cool over there, like a large rock feature, but I can't quite see it because the moonlight's not strong enough. So I'm gonna take a long exposure photo and we'll see what's there.